All right, so today we're going to talk about the feet and the lower legs. So we're going to start just by walking around and just noticing what your feet feel like when you're walking. So do you put weight in one foot more than the other? Is there pain in your feet? And you can even notice what your breath does as you're walking. Do you hold it? Do you feel it down in your abdomen, in your ribs? And there's no judgment. You're just taking note. All right, so we're going to start with our left foot, and I'm going to use a ball. So you can grab a tennis ball, lacrosse ball, anything that you have that's similar. And I'm going to place the ball of my foot on the ball. And I'm not going to press down super hard and try to lengthen out that tissue with a whole lot of pressure. I'm just placing the ball of my foot on the ball and imagining my foot melting over the ball. And then I'm gauging the pressure by putting more weight in my front leg or more weight in my back leg. And then I'm going to slowly move the ball back. So I'm going down the center of my arch. And throughout this exercise, if there's an area that you want to hang out longer in, hang out longer. I'm just slowly making my way towards my heel with the ball. That feels a little tender for me, so I might hang out there a little bit longer. So there's three arches in the foot. There's one on the inside, the medial arch. There's an arch on the outside, and then there's an arch that goes across our foot. And ideally, when we're walking, we want those arches to have some nice movement, some nice spring. But for numerous amounts of reasons, our feet can get really tight. It can be from surgeries, emotional stress. You can even notice that if you're walking around somebody, if you feel like you have to tippy toe around that person, notice what your feet are doing. And then I'm moving the ball a little further back. So now I'm at the base of my heel. And that's an area where people can get bone spurs. So if you ever feel like a red hot pain or it does not feel good, stop doing the exercise. Don't do it. Um, but if it feels like a good, like, ooh, that feels like a good, like the tissue softening, lengthening out, stick with it and let your breath touch that and bring your awareness into your feet. So this is a really simple exercise. I think the hardest part is remembering to do it. And you don't have to, there's no right or wrong on how long or short you spend doing it. But it's always good to take some time to bring your awareness into your body, bring it specific into specific areas like your feet. So now I brought the ball back up to the ball of my foot, and I'm going to work down that outside of my foot. And remember, go at your own pace. I'm just going to tell you where I'm at to give you different ideas of where you can place the ball. So on the outside of our foot, from right below the pinky down towards the heel, there's a thick muscle. And that fascia around the muscle can get short and tight. And that can create discomfort. I was going to say something else, but discomfort. And then there's also ligaments on the outside of your foot, and people can get bone spurs out there. So keeping that fascia lengthened out can take pressures off those bone spurs if you do have one. And it can also just keep that arch in there nice and healthy to prevent those bone spurs from happening. And then moving the ball a little further back. So now I'm getting back towards my heel. It's a beautiful day out. Now I'm actually stepping down on the ball, and the ball is right under my heel. So this area under the heel can be really thick. So sometimes it doesn't feel like a whole lot, but it can also get tight where it can be really tender on some people. Regardless, it's a really nice area just to keep nice and open so that calcaneus bone can have a little more room to move. Good. And then I'm going to turn around just so you can see me. And I'm going to place the ball right under my big toe joint. So now I'm going to get more of the medial arch. And then I'm going to slowly work the ball down my foot again. So now we got the center of our foot, the outside of our foot, and now we're getting the inside. And then I'm going to bring the ball back. And this is also an important area that's often neglected, is I'm going to put my toes right on the ball so that I can lengthen out the tissue that's right under the toes. A lot of times that the tissue under the toes can get tight and it can create like hammer toes for people. Or in time, people's toes start to kind of get a little more crisscross or start to go sideways. You might still be young, so you don't notice that. But if you kind of just look at maybe your parents or grandparents or just people in general, you'll start to notice like, oh, taking care of your toes is really important. And that'll help with balance as you get older, or if you're already older, keeping that tissue nice and lengthened out can help with balance significantly. Good. So now I even have my baby toe up on the ball. So I'm stretching out the tissue under my pinky toe. Good. And then I'm going to move the ball and just put it just under my big toe. So I'm stretching my big toe out. Right. Good. And again, take as long or as little time as you want with this. Good. And then I'm just going to walk around and just noticing how that feels on the foot that you just worked. So my foot feels a little softer on the ground. I can feel more of the ground, the temperature, the texture of it. It almost feels a little more like a platypus foot, or what I would imagine one. In another clip, we'll get more into walking and the feet and tracking and other exercises that you can do for that. But for now, let's go ahead and put our the ball of our foot on the other foot on the ball. And that same idea of just your foot melting over the ball. You may notice by now if your ball feels a little too hard, you might want to get a softer ball. Or if the ball feels too soft, you may want a harder ball. I like the pinky balls from Amazon because they don't seem too soft, they don't seem too hard. Now I'm slowly moving the ball back towards my heel. And they're pretty cheap for a ball. Good. So for me, this foot feels a little bit tighter. And I'm going to move the ball back even more. So now I'm directly in the center of my foot. Now I've moved it right under the heel, or excuse me, in front of the heel. I'm going to place my whole heel on the ball. I'm going to bring it back. And then I'm going to do the outside of my foot. So I'm right below my pinky toe. And then there's a thick muscle on the outside of the foot, on the sole. And so I'm working that fascia all the way back towards my heel. And if there's an area that feels, I could spend a little more time here, I'm doing that. So if our feet get tight or if they start to feel tight to you, you often want to question what's going on. It could be from a surgery, or maybe you went for a long walk that your body's just not used to. But you can also check in with your shoes if your shoes are too tight, if they're worn. Um, a lot of times there's an emotional response. And so, one thing that you can check in on is you can think about old quotes like stepping on someone's toes or someone stepping on your toes or walking on eggshells. And if you find yourself walking on eggshells around a situation or someone, you can start to check in like, oh, what are my feet doing when I'm doing this? So I'll often check in with my breath and then kind of do a whole body scan, but you can also isolate it to an area. And then eventually you'll start to notice that your body talks to you. And it'll be the first thing to let you know if you're in a situation that's not necessarily healthy for you. Okay, and then we get the inside arch. So I'm just placing the ball under my big toe joint and then slowly working its way back. Good, and I feel like I could get the center of my arch a little bit more. So I'm gonna do that just a little bit longer. Go at your pace, what feels good for you, what you need. Then I get the heel, my heel. Good. And then I'm gonna place the ball right under my toes again. And just getting the fascia that's under the toes lengthened out. And so there's a ton of nerve endings in our feet. And those nerve endings will signal up our body to contract, release. There's a feedback loop that happens. So there's fascia around the nerve. So if we can keep that fascia lengthened out, it can keep that signaling a little more healthy. because sometimes if the fascia gets tight, it can send a false signal up to our lower backs to tighten or our hips to tighten. It can also happen the other way around. So now I'm getting just my pinky toe, my baby toe under the ball. Make sure that gets attention. It's often an area that gets pretty neglected. And then my big toe. Great. And then go ahead and walk around. Walk forwards, backwards, and just noticing what that feels like to you. And if it feels good and you want to keep this or be able to come back to it more and more, allow your feet or connect your mind to your feet and feel the temperature, the texture, whatever you're walking on. And that'll help to create a narrow pathway so that you can come back to that when your body gets stressed and things start to tighten. All right, I hope that helps.